Welcome back. Now, Nigeria's democracy remains male-dominated, despite several advocacies and even the 35% affirmative action goal. Women hold less than 10 seats of the National Assembly and even other political positions in the country. And this raises tough questions about inclusion in Nigerian politics, leading us to talk on the alarming low number of women representation in politics in Nigeria. Now, with us in the studio this morning is Professor Joy Ezilo. She's a senior advocate of Nigeria, OON, a life bencher, and the founder of Coal and Tamasak. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, looking at the representation of women in Nigeria politics, we're seeing, this 35 affirmative action goal, which has existed since 2006. And yes, we see that women's representation in parliament remains under 6%. Why is that? And what does that say about how our policies translate to practice in Nigeria?
Yeah, it's really bad. Actually, it's decimal, and it's less than 6% that's projected, because what we have with regard to the National Assembly is 3% at Senate and 4% at the House of Representatives. And when you look at the state houses of assembly as a whole, only 48 seats were won by women post the 2023 election, and out of 990 seats. So you work it out again, it is about 4.7%. So that's really bad, because that's where even a government is closest to the people. So, and actually 14 state houses of assembly have no woman. No woman representation, no women there. 14. That's really disturbing. The statistical information of Nigeria is far below the global average. And when you look at global average of 26.6%, you can see where Nigeria is. And the worst is that if you do a comparative analysis by looking at African countries, then you know that we are really lagging behind. And this issue of inclusion and governance is something that must be urgently rectified. Just look at Rwanda. Rwanda, women constitute 61.3% of the lower house and 34.6% of the upper legislative. They run a bicameral system, just like us. If you look at South Africa, women represent 46.2% of the lower house and 44.4% of the upper legislative chambers. So these are recent statistics. And then you look at it, women have been speakers, deputy speakers, of both chambers. In Senegal, the percentage of women in parliament is 46%. This is closer home to West Africa. In Namibia, women hold 44.2% of the lower house and 14.3% of the upper house. If you look at Mozambique, it's 43.2%. You look at Cape Verde, is 41.7%. I want to focus on Africa, because if you think of others, they may say, oh, why Western world? These are not the standard that we are used to. You look at Burundi, it's 38.2% in the lower house and 41% in the upper house. Cameroon, our next door neighbor, is 34.5%, and the lower house 29%. Look at Uganda, it's 33.8%. And I'm talking about where the country has met the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action strategic recommendation of at least 30%. And this year is Beijing plus 30. Beijing conference happened in 1995, and we're commemorating Beijing plus 30. And you're talking of Nigeria, a strategic country in Africa, the largest country, black nation in the world, women having 5%, where women are highly educated, highly entrepreneurs, intellectuals, and that have in all facets of life performed. So look at Niger, before the coup was 13.7%. Look at Zimbabwe, women constitute 30.6%, with 44.2% in the upper legislative chamber, equivalent of our Senate. Tanzania, women constitute 37% in parliamentary. In Kenya, of course, the constitution made it very clear about the proportional representation, and women have their 30% plus there. So what is holding Nigeria? Can we really say we are giant of Africa, where we are lagging behind other African countries? So it's not even about this. This is about women's right to participate in the government of their country, which is a right, by the way, because the Universal Declaration on human rights recognized this as far back as 1948. And in Beijing, one of the critical areas of concern was the issue of women's political participation and participation in decision making and in public offices. So it talks about elective and appointive and talks about at least 30%. So if you look at the analysis, the stride made by African countries in increasing women's participation in governance, it underscores the need for Nigeria to take urgent measures to redress the situation. And that is what this special seat and the constitution review represent for Nigerian women, because it is either now or never. And I believe it is now that the time has come for Nigeria to realize that you cannot, to enhance or raise the quality of leadership, you need both genders in nation building. And one cannot run on one foot standing, you would definitely fall. So we need to have both genders, men, women, and the statistical information, it shows we are significant distance and we have a lot of ground to cover. So we are inviting men and women of goodwill to see this as something that is a matter of social justice and inclusion in government. It's not a lofty ideal. It's the recognition of women's fundamental right to help shape the destiny of a nation. And I believe with women, look at the current situation, inflation, everything, hardship. If more women are there, they go to market, whatever how level. Ask me about market prices. I will tell you what a pint of Gary cost. You know, this is why I'm being a professor of law, because I have my family again to take care of, you know, and grandchildren. So I know this. So when they see that, they will think of common men and women on the street and know that something has to happen. So it's the cornerstone of authentic democracy. For it, you must engender it, and in a way to have women participate. And that is what will lead to sustainable democracy and sustainable development. No woman should be expected to submit to laws and practices in which they have no hands in making, in which they have no voice in making. And like I said, now is the time to break this cycle of marginalization and insist on equal representation. You mentioned even 35% in the national gender policy. I want to tell you that we have even gone beyond that. Many people are not aware that the national gender policy was revised in 2022 and actually recommended 50%. And with that 50%, that's parity, 50-50, but where are we? We're even off the marks in terms of the first 35 in elective position. If you look at even women in appointed position, it's still not good. So what it is now is for us to really align ourselves to the demand for special seat, for amendment of relevant parts of the Constitution, sections 48, 49, 71, 91, 117, even 147, section 42, in order to ensure that women are represented, that additional seats are added, and it's talking about additional seats per state for the Senate, and that gives us 36 plus FCT. And then it comes also for the House of Representatives, we use senatorial district as well. In fact, initially we thought maybe 2 per state, but they said the number will be much. I don't believe that actually it adds to governance, the cost of governance. But still, if we have that one also for the House of Representatives, that gives us another 36. And if you look at it, then we get at least 74. And that 74 in national parliament is not bad. It's for inclusion, for redress, for social justice, for equity, I think is the minimum we can do. And then for the House of Assemblies also, you add 3 per state. So each senatorial district will get 1 additional woman, you know, and those are what we call special seat. Special seat, the concept means that it will be only women contested seats. Okay, every political party will nominate only a woman. All women are the people that will be nominated by political parties to contest for that seat. So no man will come there and be vying for those seats, and it will be according to senatorial district. So if you have that 37, when you add FCT for Senate, add another FCT for House of Reps, it gives us 74. And for the state houses of assembly, we amend sections 91 in order for them to do that. You amend relevant sections, and INEC will be empowered to conduct this election. So the resistance, like you hear people say, that if you do affirmative action is actually discrimination. I don't agree with it. Measures aimed at addressing inequalities and promoting inclusive governance do not constitute discrimination as described in Section 42 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Instead, they support the realization of the constitutional aspiration and objectives of non-discrimination among Nigerian citizens and not allowing one gender or one ethnic group to dominate. This aligns with the National Gender Policy of 2022, which advocates for at least 50% gender parity in elective and appointive position. So we need to encourage our constituencies, our representatives, for vote in favor of this constitutional reform. The future of Nigeria depends on us, all of us, and especially women. And I think now is the moment to decisively act. We need the support of traditional leaders. We need the support of all stakeholders, religious leaders, and we are getting it. The governors, for example, Enugu State Governor has made it very clear he is for that, and he has spoken about that, and we are very happy. And other governors also are coming up, Kwara State, Niger State, even Katsina, Kanu, they have spoken in favor of that. Lagos State as well. So we need to get this going. The Governors Forum need to buy in. We're also pleading with the wives of governors. All hands must be on deck. And to demonstrate commitment to several international and regional treaties that Nigeria has ratified. To now we are doing the UNGA. UN is very clear, is a site for this discussion about gender equality and women empowerment. And I think together we can chart a course. We can chart a course towards a more equitable, just, and prosperous Nigeria, and that should be our quest. The time is now.
All right, so how do you respond to citizens who said that representation should be about competence rather than gender or identity?
Yeah, the issue is that even within that, there are many competent and qualified women. And again, think of what do we have now? Do you know the requirement? Requirement is school certificate. I mean, so it's WAEC. And then you're talking about, so please tell me how many women that have, in fact, even women in terms of school enrollment, take for example in Southeast, they outnumber the men. And I can tell you, I mean, the university system, even at the University of Nigeria, we used to have one hostel before, Lady Biam for women. Now they've taken over all of the men. I'm in law. We have more women now in law than men. So we're not talking about, women are qualified and overqualified out there. You know, but at the men, look at the men that are holding these positions, you know, so they can make it. So it's not an excuse, you know, and the resistance on affirmative action has been used actually in every field, even including in other fields, economic empowerment. If you notice a group is lacking behind, you try to create opportunity, you know, for them to be able to come up. That's also an obligation on all of us. So these specific measures are not meant to discriminate, but to break down barriers, systemic barriers and structures that constrain, you know, this enabling environment against women. So the targeted action by this special seat is crucial in addressing the historic and systemic injustices against women. In fact, even the colonial times were much fairer, because if I think of likes of Janet Merkel from our part of the world, she was in Lancaster House, London. She was part of discussion of the negotiating nationalist movement and negotiating the constitution that we inherited at independence. So how come post-independence, 65 years, next week or so, I think, yes, and we're still not there. And look at, I've given you the statistics from other African countries. So it is important that we look at how we can ensure that Nigeria works for all, you know, irrespective of where you come from, irrespective of your religion, irrespective of your sex, irrespective of disability. We should make sure that no one is discriminated against, directly or indirectly, on grounds of gender, ethnic group, marital status, ethnic or social origin, or age or religion or disability. That's very, very important.
Right. Now, Nigerian political parties have women leaders at national and state levels. Yeah. But we see that most times these roles are largely ceremonial. Yeah. So what would you say is the reason for that, and what structural reforms inside parties can make these positions real levels of power?
Yeah, what has happened is interesting to watch how the parties have been structured, you know, around those who are gladiators and those who are spectators, you know, and the fact that, you know, before women know it, they are part of cheerleaders, and then the chorus is and on those parties, you know, but they know that the women base are very important. They know they have the numerical strength, but the women haven't used this numerical strength to work for themselves. So the gladiators are men. It becomes a men's club. And then they will just give this tokenism. And that's what we don't want again. Tokenism of women, a woman leader, and the woman leader who now work in silo is secluded from she alone as a person being the only representative in the national ESCOs of those parties will not be enough to represent women's interest, because it will be her voice, and then they will just always tokenism. So that has become actually a double-edged sword, including even the waiver of nomination forms and all of that, because somehow they've used it also to further marginalize a woman and say you don't contribute enough to political parties' enterprise. So that's why we encourage women, when you're ready also for politics, be ready and do your budget. Yes, we want some concession, but those concessions should not make them to really see women as inferior or see women as not being one to run for the same office. So the woman leader find that we must have also affirmative action in the executive leadership of political parties. And if you look at also the 5 gender bills that failed in the 9th Assembly, you know, it also included the fact that this representation will also be at party level. Because if you have it, it's actually supposed to trickle down. Those parties have in their constitutions and manifestos, if there is no single party that doesn't have some form of level of affirmative action. But the problem is the gulf between what is written in the books and in what happens in practice. None of them have fulfilled that their parties' manifestos and constitution in terms of provisions that is geared towards achieving gender equality or empowerment of women or even youths.
All right, so now we know that years has gone by with agitation from women, and recently, though, in the National Assembly, where a number of women went there where they were protesting, doing a peace walk, but then years will go down. Even there was a support on the headlines that Abbas, Akpabio, even Tinubu himself is promising to support the women for the reserved seats. But then, do you think this is just, you know, like rubbing honey on the lips of the women, but then after a long while, nothing will be done? Why do you think there is a delay in implementation?
Yeah, definitely they pay lip services to that. And definitely sometimes they just say something in the morning, and by evening, or in the evening, by morning, they are saying this different thing. That's why we want to also hold people to account. Let's see how everyone votes for this special seat. So it's not going to be just voice votes. We need to have it on record voting, and let's see how people vote for each of these constitutional amendments. Because when you just do this voice vote, everybody adds, and they can come out and say, hey, I supported you people, women. So let's know those who didn't support, and then we can inform their constituency what they've done and say, look, this person voted against us. He doesn't want women to be there. He doesn't want Nigerian women to raise their voice. And then, we don't want him to be elected. So it can become a campaign issue. So we need to have it on record, electronic voting. That's how it's done in civilized world. You know how I don't like this idea of voice votes because that's people just hide under that. And even if they have co-sponsored, otherwise in the 9th Assembly, take for example, there were more than 120 signatures that co-sponsored that equivalent, the additional seat. And then when it came to voting, we didn't get that up to that. So meaning that someone who was co-sponsoring a bill voted against that bill. What a betrayal. That's ultimate betrayal. So I know that Mr. President, they have pledged their support. We've seen some support from other quarters. We need to do more work, definitely. But I think women are resolute this time around. If you check, I was also at the national public hearing, you will see the signatures women have gathered, millions from across Nigeria, of those supporting the special seat. You can see how they mobilized against ethnic divide, against religious divide, Muslim women, Christian women, women of all shades. Women are scattered hegemony, but women came together saying the same thing, and that concerted effort, we have never had it like this. So I believe that since we are resolute in this demand and we are getting the necessary support from all corners of Nigeria, that we are going to succeed this time around.
Okay. Now, talking about women inclusion in politics, in as much as we've had low turnout of women, but the few who have come out to vie for several positions usually get little support, even from women. So do you think that women actually support women when it comes to their political ambition?
I don't believe in this conspiracy theory that women are their worst enemies. Because think of it, men fight each other. Look at the politics, how it is washed with all kinds of rivalry, the political system so heated up, so the bitterness you can see all over the page. Is it not men? They are men fighting. So we don't have to use that, because yes, and again we have to understand process of socialization and women internalizing their situation or their position as belonging to the other room, because that's what they've been conditioned to believe, that there is a conceptualized dichotomy between public and private space. And from day one, if you read Things Fall Apart, I had the opportunity to reread it, you will see, like, you are a woman, So all those conditioning have a way, they affect a woman's behavior, that even sometime before they just react and say, why is that woman coming out? Then they will just now look back and say, okay, this woman is actually more qualified than all the men coming out. But that instinct that, okay, women are not natural leaders, that even at religious level, they keep preaching to them, and then all of those things, and the head of family phenomenon, not even minding that women are the head in many households, So all of these things goes into the subconsciousness of a woman and their being. So sometimes it requires sensitization and conscientization for them to just, to move from that, to understand and become very aware. And I believe many women are there, they have the agency, and they can also think for them. So for themselves. So, and I don't believe that women are their worst enemies. What happens is that men sometimes use women against other. In fact, actually it's the men that is causing the confusion. They use women against women, and they are the ones to ask them, because probably sometimes the power dynamics, the power relations, they are the ones, maybe the provider in the family, for example, will ask you to vote this way. They are the ones who ask women to vote in particular ways. So I don't believe that, because sometimes they give example and say, oh, look at when Sebra Jibril was running for this, only herself or whatever voted. You look at the political process, the way it happens. The political process is such that even the time they are doing this with the party agents, with nomination of those who will be delegates, and then if it's 3 and they have 1 woman, they already know where they are going. They already know who they are supporting. The people who control them and their political leadership will tell them this is the way. You see? So that is the problem. We need to have more democratic culture, because the internal democracy is lacking in all the political parties. And there is no democratic culture across all political parties. There is no even ideology across all political parties. That's why they pay lip service even to their constitution, lip service even to the manifestos of the party. I don't even know how you can distinguish one from the other, except that they are all very committed to power, do or die type of politics, mercantile politics and politicians. And those are the things that create, a lack of enabling environment even for women to thrive in politics, including the political violence that we see, that also women, look at women beaten up, even pregnant when having, and they still come out and vote. So the real voters, and that's why we want women to strategically use their numerical strength to get those who are in power and the politicians and the political elite, to give them their rightful position and place in governance. We shouldn't be begging for these things. It shouldn't be, the tokenism, we've passed that stage. Just look at where other countries are. They've met the benchmark. And we're talking of Beijing plus 30 this year. And Nigeria is still talking about 30%. We don't even have 10%.
All right. We know that you're a recognized leader in women's rights and legal aid. What is your opinion on the case between Akpabio and Natasha? Do you think it was constitutionally okay for her to have gone through what she went through? And what do you think about Nigeria's democracy and what is going on in the 10th National Assembly?
What I would say, of course, this case is in court, and I'm a senior advocate of Nigeria. So I think professional ethics demand that I shouldn't be commenting. But I think everyone should have their day in court. And it's important that we have a system that will give fair hearing to all. And it's important that also that we ensure that we have a system that respects women's human rights. And then also women's right also to express themselves. So, but in the terms of the main case, I wouldn't go into that. I think the court will still have to. They have decided. They are still on appeal, and they will come up with a decision.
All right, but on a general note, seeing that we are finding issues of female lawmakers reporting these cases, do you think that it creates a hostile environment for even women to want to be in these positions, looking at issues like this?
Even hostile environment is everywhere. And sometimes I get worried about people who are vulnerable, because you have to categorize vulnerability. If you're an elected woman, I think your vulnerability is far reduced. It's far reduced because you can speak, you can raise your voice. What about those who are in schools, who someone have your faith over you that if you don't do this, I will not pass you? Certain sexual harassment at that level becomes really insidious, becomes something that can make or mar a woman's a professional achievement. And I get worried at that level and say that, look, there must be zero tolerance on sexual harassment in schools and workplaces, because even in workplaces, women have suffered that in a way that it has affected even their career and advancement. So I can say in general, these places, whether educational, workplaces, they are still very hostile environment. But we have laws. We have laws and National Industrial Act. People can go to court. We have laws that cover this, and criminal law and assault. And we need to also encourage people to break the silence, to be able to talk about this. You know about the Me Too movement in the world. When it happened, it didn't even catch up with countries like Nigeria or African countries, because of the way they condition a woman. Open sexuality discussion is not what people, because of the stigma, shy away from that. So we have to empower people to be able to talk about these things when they feel able. Because you can't say, a woman, why didn't you talk about this today? Why did it happen why it happened 2 years ago? How come that is today that you're talking about it? There is when they feel able, when they are ready, they've survived and overcome their victimization, and they're able to, so they are free to talk about that victimization and what they have gone through at any point. And we must encourage them to break that silence.
All right. From your work at WACO, how can civil society, government, or even the media better support credible female, aspirants while avoiding tokenism? And what role do you think men can play to accelerate inclusion?
Yeah, so I think we must not forget that progress for women is progress for men, and that we must also carry our men folk along. And that's why I'm so glad that if you look at if you had the speaker speak at the national public hearing of House of Representatives, including the Deputy Senate Speaker, who is the chair of the Constitutional Reform Right, Honorable Dr. Benjamin Kalu, it's really, it just energized the room. People were like, okay, they struck a chord that these are people who are in leadership that understand what this meant. So we need more men on the side of women. So women cannot achieve this alone. So men of goodwill should also join. And truly, when you on the street and you take a poll, you will see some men who are saying, look, let's give women a chance, because they actually recognize the needs of their constituency, and they always go back. Look at all these legislators, all this, that. Just look at, you see that the women are doing better. they will go back to their constituency and they have support, and they will try to support them, you know, in what they need. So we cannot go it alone. We need the men, and we are begging, and we're also appealing, and we're also demanding as of right that they join us, you know, in this fight. So at WACO, we identify that capacity is very important. You know, the economic status of women, you know, they don't control the means of production. So sometimes this contributes to large failure of women's political enterprise, let's put it that way. So they go, then they see that there is so much money that is required in political campaign. So there should be enforcement of laws against campaign financing, so that a minimum, it costs so much and it's getting out of hand, even in Nigeria. And that's when people get there, they want to recoup all they have also put in. So that is not favorable also to women. And there should be support in that direction, including strategic communication, including media support, giving them visibility they need in order to be able to reach out to their different constituencies.
All right, I think there's so much still to talk about, honestly, but it's not something we can do in a sitting. All right, thank you so much, Professor Joy Ezilo, for joining us. A senior advocate of Nigeria, a life venture, and founder of WACO Temasek. Thank you for coming. Over to you, Uche.
Thank you so much once again, Professor Ezilo. And now we'll be joining Luke Umbo for Political Circle, and then we'll connect to our Abuja studios. Do stay with us.
We are local.
International communities observing
Why the main market is in chaos. People
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended, say aye. Aye.
We have taken the vote by default.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.